Welcome to our Coach's Corner podcast, where we take a fun, informal, no-fluff approach covering all things health and fitness. Whether it's your first time listening or we are on your favorites list, we want to thank you for tuning in to Season 2 of our Coach's Corner podcast by Well at Humana.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Coach's Corner. Today, we'll be discussing a big topic that takes some momentum, discipline, and consistency, creating behaviors for lasting change. Also, we have a big announcement. So this will actually be host Eric's last show with us.
Last show.
Right? As he had to get back some sunshine and in no other place.
Going back to the Sunshine State.
Sunshine State. Eric, can we convince you that the cloudy skies here in Kentucky are only temporary for like 6 months?
I mean, you're going to need a big bottle of bourbon.
Right? Eric has a great opportunity in the Sunshine State. That's where he came from us, so he'll be making his way back there. But
I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on the show. Let me be a part of it. It's grown a ton over the years, so I'd love to see it keep growing.
Awesome. So we're gonna send it out this episode. So we also have host Amy here today. She is going to be bringing a lot of the information. Amy is our wellness coordinator at Well at Humana across the enterprise. She's also a behavior change specialist. So she is certified in this subject, in this topic, and is super passionate about it as well. So you'll be hearing a lot from Amy. All right, Amy, are you ready? No questions today.
Oh, yeah. You set me up I was like, no, I'm not.
She looked at me like, you did not give me this.
Yeah.
No, we're going to hop right into it, honestly, because this is it's a pretty big topic with a lot to cover. I think where we start is where we usually need to start is what is the meaning behind behavior change? Like, what does it exactly mean even?
Yeah. I mean, it's not too complicated of a definition. It is quite literally changing a behavior. But I think in terms of behavior change, it is more of a lifestyle change. It is more of changing your daily habits, how you do things day to day, and it's not so much a quick change. So we're not talking about like a diet here. We're not talking about dropping 10 pounds in a few days. Like, this is literally a change that will positively impact your life in the long term. So I recently been reading this book called How to Change by Katie Milkman. So that's where I'm getting a lot of my stuff today because it was a great book and I really like her approach to things. But one of the quotes that she says is transformative behavior is more like treating a chronic disease than curing a rash. Mm. So it is like you're not just, putting some cream on it, it goes away. It's a chronic thing. So you got to keep treating it. You might have to try new things over time. So I thought that was a really comparable thing.
I think it hits home too. And what you said really resonated with me is like, I know everyone, like, lifestyle change seems so big to people, right? But what a lifestyle change is like changing the daily habits. So we have daily habits, whether they're positive or negative, that we do. And all of us have positive and negative daily habits. Mm-hmm. But if you find yourself wanting to change a habit, it has to be that daily consistency that impacts the entire life.
Yeah. The goal that you might have could be extreme, but your behavior change should not be extreme. It should be just tiny little habits over time that make up that change.
I like the day-to-day. Like, just take one day at a time. Okay, I'm going to do these good things today. When tomorrow comes, I'm going to try to do them again.
Mm-hmm. But that's hard.
Keep that.
Like, behavior change is freaking hard. Yeah. And that's a big part of this podcast today that I want to cover, because I know, like, we've touched on SMART goals and stages and, like, all these things that people have heard. But I want to go into kind of why behavior change is so hard. What are those common obstacles that we get into, and then how
can
we
overcome
that?
Some of that stuff runs deep.
Yeah, because we're not all Dana. We don't all just Nike it,
Come on.
We're not just
do it.
We're not just doing it.
Hey, I will say, like, I'm pretty disciplined individual, but that doesn't mean it comes easier to me than it does someone else. Like, the shit still sucks, right? And it's like, but there are some things that I do believe, and I don't, this is not scientific, you guys. This is just thought here. I do think some individuals may be predisposed to, like, be more disciplined than others.
Yeah.
I do think
agree.
that in
Yeah.
a way. Like a lot of times you see a lot of creatives, individuals that are super creative. They're not necessarily very structured. And then you see more people that, a lot of athletes, like if you grew up in athletics, which
Yeah.
I did and played throughout college, you see a more disciplinary type of
Yeah.
mentality where it's more structured and it allows them to be more consistent. So it's like that goes back to your friggin'
Yeah.
childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like that's what I want to talk when we get into that self-awareness piece that I know is on here. I mean, that's something too, being aware of how you grew up, being aware of what kind of person you are,
Yeah.
being aware of what's worked and what has in the past.
And I think a
all
lot of
that.
that's understanding you have the choice to make that change.
Yeah.
It's nothing else keeping you there in your current situation.
But it could
It
be
doesn't
also
mean it's not still
Subconsciously, it
hard.
could be there.
it could be though that like yes, you're self-aware that you have a choice, but like you're also self-aware enough to know like I have a habit of going here.
Yeah.
Like and knowing yourself that way where like I know some things that are going to trigger me to like not get to my goal or not to change behavior. So it's kind of one of those things. But we mentioned like not going deep into like stages of behavior, stages of change.
Still can touch on
but,
it, so you have an
like,
idea.
How are stages of behavior change? Like how are they categorized?
So, and we talked about this on a previous podcast where we went more in depth on our New Year's episode, but basically there are 5 of them, and they're categorized as pre-contemplation. So that's, you're not even thinking about it. Like you don't
Not
know
aware
there's
at
a
all.
problem, you don't care, it's not even a thing. And then there's contemplation. So you've kind of started to think about it. Maybe you had a doctor's appointment with some blood work that wasn't great. Maybe you saw a picture of yourself that you weren't too happy about your arms or whatever it is. So you had some kind of realization, the wheels are starting to turn, you're thinking about it. And then you would move into preparation. So this is kind of the actual starting area of change. This is where you might be listening to this podcast today, or gathering research, or writing out your goals, setting yourself up. So preparation is like you haven't taken action yet, but you are thinking about it. You will probably in the next month. So that's kind of that timeline of preparation is before that starts. From there, you're gonna move into action, and this is actually taking those steps. This is like what we think of in the behavior change part.
This is like what? The January 1st New Year's resolution to
Yeah, we're doing it
Yeah,
now. This
yeah.
is
This
the
is the action.
action. And then, so that's the hard part. And then you get into maintenance. And they say this is like 6 months plus, but really it's kind of forever. Where it's, I don't want to say easy, but it is easier. It's at this point, it has become a habit or part of your daily lifestyle.
Yep.
Just because you're in maintenance does not mean you can't backslide.
Yeah.
A big vacation or a big life change or something like that. And we'll talk about that in the obstacles too. But maintenance is typically like it's there. You got it.
The patterns are established,
Yeah.
I think, is like, but you talked about like the pre-contemplation phase, the action phase. Do you feel like a desire for behavior change is like usually sudden? Or really what happens when people transition into that phase of like, actually, it's like actually wanting to change. So what I'm speaking of is like when they talk about people with addiction, they always say like, you have to want to change that behavior. And there's some things that like people will vocally speak like, I need to do this, I need to do that, but they don't want to.
right.
Like they don't have an issue. Like they may have an issue with it, but they really, really don't want to.
Right.
So do you see like a desire for behavior change? Like, is it something that's usually gradual or is it something that's like sudden?
I think it's both. I saw this Instagram quote that I really liked, so not sciencey here, but it was a John C. Maxwell quote, and it said, "People change when they hurt enough that they have to change, learn enough that they want to change, or receive enough that they're able to change." That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of that is sudden. Like it is seeing that picture, or it is getting that class reunion invitation in the mail, or getting those doctor results, and something kind of snaps.
Yeah.
Maybe you get that information and it doesn't click immediately, and it kind of builds up in your brain. You're thinking about it, and you're thinking about it, and you're like, one day you're just like, I need to do something about this finally.
Yeah.
So I think it's both. I think it's a build up. I was also reading this book called Tiny Habits, and they had what they said was small adjustments make up a successful approach to change. And they say that changes to behavior come from 3 pieces. So theirs is a little different. They had epiphanies, which is kind of what we're talking about, that sudden wake up call.
Yeah.
Environment, so something in your environment could change. Maybe your friends are starting to get healthy. You see some changes there. Maybe you've moved. You're in a more active town or whatever. You're changed by your environment and your situation. And then also, because the book is Tiny Habits, they say your tiny habits. So the little things that you start to do kind of make those changes.
I feel like it can be I feel like you can be in contemplation phase for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that once you get out of there, you may be moving, but I feel like that phase can take a really long time because it could be something of I know this isn't right or it's not fitting for what I want, but you let it continue to be there. Whatever it is, whether it's food,
Those little quick hit
exercise,
endorphins of the bad things that you get.
alcohol, friends, trips, anything, job, whether it be anything, it's not positive for you, but you just let it sit for a while.
I feel like you can slip around within these categories. You might be thinking about it, and then you might start taking some more concrete things, and then maybe get scared off and back into that contemplation. Or maybe you're in preparation and you dip your toes in some action. And
Or with a lot of the fad diets, they just don't work for somebody.
Yeah.
They go backwards because they're like, well, that didn't work. Why would I even try
it's
it again?
discouraging.
Yeah.
Or going to a gym and you're like, I'm going, and then you go and you're like, that was terrible. And it's one of those, you feel intimidated or you feel not welcome or you feel like it was not fun, which sometimes it's not. Or
you don't get the immediate results. And so
there's just a lot of things that I feel like you can stay in that phase for a really long time, especially we talk about self-awareness all the time. If you're not self-aware enough to say I've been in this phase for about 2 years, I need to do something about it.
But even if in 2 years later you don't care enough,
and you
nothing
don't want
happens
to,
and you don't want to, then you won't.
Right.
Yes. Or you don't find out, you don't go deep enough into the reflecting piece to say why am I still here? What is holding me here? Because there's something. There's you're not just you're wanting to make a change, you're contemplating and you're still there in 2 years. There's something that's holding you there.
Some kind of block that's keeping you there.
Limiting beliefs.
What is it? So how does someone begin to start with changing a behavior? If someone said I don't know where to start, what would be some of your recommendations?
I mean, some things that I've done, when I want to change things or try something new or just anytime I'm starting anything, I pretty much start with research, dipping my toe in, finding out about this behavior, finding out some methods that other people might have used to get where I want to go. Might listen to a podcast. I might start following Instagram pages of people that are doing things where how I want to be, or have gone through that transformation. Maybe they're sharing their story, talking to friends. Particularly ones that have maybe done that transformations. We'll say, because we're a fitness podcast, we'll say a friend that started getting into fitness or a friend that started, lost some weight healthfully. Talk to that friend, maybe talk to your doctor, depending on what your goals are, maybe find a mentor, but just kind of gathering information. You can even start writing some goals too, some initial goals, even the big ones before you break them down. Just kind of
overarching,
visualizing what kind of person you want to be, what you're going to look like when you achieve this goal. A lot
and
of
then
visualization.
Work backwards there. I mean, that's a great starting point. You don't have to have all your eggs in the basket to start. It's the beautiful thing about that is the great thing about how much we're exposed to information is that you can do some research to help you feel a little bit more confident on these people have experienced this. Like Amy said, we're a fitness and health podcast. You have a lot of resources. Pay attention though. We've talked about this. There's a lot of myths out there. There's a lot of misinformation, but it's, you do have a place where you can find enough information to help you at least feel a little bit more comfortable.
I want to say also, even if people go seek information from a fitness coach, more than likely, they're also going to have a story of how they had to overcome something to get there, to get past a block. They
Like
don't
I
just
said,
wake up fit
something's
and be
not
born
easy.
fit and are fit their whole life.
Yeah. So that leads me to this. Like we talked about early on, like, yes, I'm super disciplined, but it still doesn't come easy. It's
Right.
still hard work. I would consider myself reflective, but that's taken years to get there. What would you say to someone like when someone isn't innately self-aware, reflective? These are usually like individuals that they may not be interested in personal development. They're just kind of going day to day. Personal development, like it's nerdy to them, it's boring to them.
Growth and healing.
Yeah, like
our buzzwords.
It's super weird because a lot of people in the fitness industry, they're super nerds when it comes to personal development. So for us, it's like, oh, that's so interesting. Like the brain does that. Like, so we're innately like a little bit more self-aware, a little bit more reflective. If you're not that person and you're listening to this and you're like, I've never reflected on anything in my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Like how do they change that? How do they work on that? Because we've talked many times where self-awareness is the start.
Yeah. I mean, I want to just say therapy and then throw the mic down. but some other things.
Transition to therapy, people.
Yes.
We are done here.
Yeah, just go. Well, something that I found interesting, and this is probably getting a little bit off topic from fitness, but something that's helped in my self-awareness and on my journey.
Amy hates that word for reference.
It's interesting. Ask some loved ones closest to you, could be friends or family that you trust, about your behavior and listen honestly to their feedback.
Oh, that's so hard.
Okay, so this is interesting. So I would don't immediately...
I don't know that I want to ever do that.
I don't immediately internalize it.
Yeah.
Because it could be tough love, whatever. And you also, like, once you think about it, you might be like, oh, I'm not like that at all. But it's interesting because perception is reality. So it's interesting to see or to hear how other people perceive you. And then what you believe about yourself, and to see, like, where is that disconnect?
Yeah.
Why would that person think that about me? What
Right.
am I projecting out into the world that I'm coming off in this way? So something interesting, a little example that I have, is I was asking Zach this the other day, because we're very close friends of like 10 years. And I was like asking him just about me, and he said that I'm abrasive. And
Really? I don't see that.
right? Do you not?
No, I don't. Like,
I
honestly,
mean,
Okay, I'm a very
I
direct
I
person.
wouldn't say abrasive. I
Yeah,
wouldn't
Or
I
I
think
say
that's
come
the
off
right
as abrasive.
word.
And
I
he
would
was
say
like,
critical.
He was like, I don't find you abrasive because we're best friends of however many
Yeah.
years. I get you. I know where that's coming from. I
Yeah.
know it's not from a place of like, you have actual mean thoughts
Yeah.
for somebody. I just know you're direct.
Yeah.
But he's like, I could see how someone might think that you come
Yeah.
off that way. And so that was interesting. And I thought about that. And then so the next thing you can do with that feedback is kind of look at patterns in your family and kind of, your immediate family, maybe distant family. And all of my aunts and my mom are very direct. Like at a family gathering, I mean, they're the ones that are like, why aren't you married yet? Why are you this?
It reminds me of that commercial where he has all the ants that moved in with him.
Yeah.
Expired.
Exactly. Yes. My mom is like that, just very direct, just very like boom, boom, and doesn't realize it. That's just how she talks. And that's just how I talk. And I don't think it's mean, but I can see with my self-awareness and reflection how that might come off to people.
I had that conversation this morning with my wife because my daughter's been on her hip, just glued to her. And she doesn't want me at all unless I'm sitting there playing with her. I'm like, am I doing
That
something?
just
Like,
breaks your heart.
Am I doing something wrong? Like, is it coming off that way that I don't notice?
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
maybe
That's
it's 'cause she's only
hard.
two.
Like, that's a hard approach. But
It gets you thinking, and
Yeah.
I've
if you
made some
guys are
changes
ready
on
to
that.
think, like, you got to have some tough skin there,
Yeah.
but understand, like, and this is hard, y'all, because like everything, you're going to take that personal. Whether
Yeah.
you sit down and say, like, do not take this personal, it's usually a loved one, or someone that's really close. And you're like, man, that's not how I want to be
Yeah.
viewed. But it's
Yeah.
exactly what Amy said is like, sit for a moment and reflect in, like, what are they picking up? Where is the disconnect? Like, is it tone of voice? Is it body
Yeah.
language? Is it the words that you use? Like,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
for Amy's example, right? So Like, and then you can begin to work on those things and see where they come from.
Yeah.
And at least now you're self-aware that you might do that. So like, and that's not to say that that's going to go away just because you're,
I was about to say,
you're
what
aware.
do you tell people that are all about, well, just be yourself? Because that kind of is yourself, right? But yeah, you hear that
But,
a lot.
like,
This is just who I am.
There's ways to change and ebb and flow as you go. Just because that's who you are doesn't mean that that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Well, and then, but so this also kind of, once you've kind of dipped your toes in self-awareness, this can also tie into other things too. So like as you're observing your family patterns and maybe you notice that your whole family is overweight. And you're like, what does I have a weight loss goal. What does my whole family, why are they overweight? And you might, look deeper at like, I didn't realize my mom kept so many snacks in the cabinet. And I just have snacks in my cabinet because I didn't think about it. And you just start to notice those family patterns. Oh, no one in my family exercises. Why not? And that doesn't necessarily mean like just because your family is a certain way that you are not a person that can't exercise or that has to eat snacks. But it's interesting to see those patterns, and it makes sense of why you are the way you are. And once you have a realization of that, it's a little bit easier to start to deconstruct those patterns and habits.
There's so many things like in so many books that go way back to like so much of your environment is who you are.
Yeah.
And like you'll see if you aren't reflective, and we'll move on from this question, but if you aren't someone that's self-reflective or self-aware and you start to practice this type of things, like you might have a hard time at the beginning. Like it may be mind-blowing where you're like, my family is disruptive, like we're dysfunctional, like this is where I got all of this. Like it may be a little bit overwhelming, but it's like some of those things are going to be who you are, right? But it's like, how can we make them for the best? How can we, so it's being self-aware in that, seeing the good, the bad, and like what you want to focus on and what you can move on from. So we talked about self-awareness, reflection. Like we've all had these people that we're looking to change our behavior and we get like, we're not expecting it and we get negative feedback like immediately. Like you can't do that. Why are you doing that? It's usually why.
Yeah.
What do you do with negativity from others, like due to wanting to
Bye,
change?
Felicia. That's what I said too.
Since this is a professional podcast, I won't tell you where you can tell them to put their negativity. But I would say, like, in terms of friends, find new ones. Like, one, like, I can't think of any of my friends that, like, if I went to them with, like, a serious goal or something I was trying to change, if any of them would be like, you can't do that.
A lot of times that their negative commentary
they could be afraid
is
of change.
it's
they
a
could
reflection
be
of
jealous.
them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's usually it has nothing to do with what you want to do.
And so, and that's the thing too, like you can outgrow your friend group.
Yep.
Like
Yeah,
notice who
100%.
you're around. If they are all stagnant and doing the same things and have no desire to change or better themselves and they are just not where you want to go or, whatever.
You see like the people that climb in society, they always talk about that. Like when you get to the
You
next level,
are
you're
who
gonna
you
have a new
surround
circle.
yourself with.
Like you're gonna have a new circle no matter what level you're on.
Yeah, and you don't have to be mean. You don't have to like just be
Right.
like, well, I'm not actually going to be your friend anymore, Tiffany. Like, I don't appreciate this.
Yeah.
But like, you can phase them out a little bit, or get dinner once a year or whatever. But find a new circle. Find people that are aligned with what you want to do.
Or call them out and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to work on.
Yeah.
Do you want to do it with
well,
me?
and
No?
that's
Okay,
why I think
see ya.
like family, like if family is telling you that, because that's a little different, you can't fully cut them out. So I think with family, you
show you
might
how to
have
do
to.
that too.
Well, yeah, maybe. But I would say with family, you could sit them down and explain the importance
Yeah.
and explain your why. And then maybe ask them for support. And once they know how important
Yeah.
it is to you and why, see if they'll give you that support. And if not, maybe then it's time to put in place some boundaries. Another buzzword.
I feel like
Boundaries.
it's also like understand that you don't need their approval. You're asking for their support. I
Yeah.
think a lot
Yeah.
of times those get intercrossed, especially with a parental
Right.
family member, like child to parent. Doesn't matter how old you are, you're usually seeking your parents' approval in
Yeah.
some way or another. And understand with certain goals, let's talk career goals, for example. they may not have the dreams that you have, they may not have the skills that you have, and they don't possess them. You do. And it's like they can't understand what your vision is. So honestly, it's more of that approach to looking for support instead of that looking for approval type of thing.
100%.
So what are some common obstacles to behavior change?
All right. I'll keep these a little bit shorter than intended because we got a little wordy on the other part. So some common obstacles, I think there's about like 7 or 8 of them that Katie specifically mentioned in her book that I love. But the first obstacle, one, is not getting started or getting started. That's our first obstacle that we seek. So this change can be overwhelming. It might not fit our existing routine. And there's a high amount of mental and physical friction to get started. So just getting started is an obstacle.
Number one.
So something that she recommends to do is, and it's kind of contradictory of our New Year's podcast, but take advantage of fresh starts. Take advantage of New Year's. Take advantage of your birthday. Take advantage of a Monday. I know we say, when we always harp on it, like, don't wait till Monday. You know, you don't have to wait until Monday to make a change. But, like, if you really need a mental push,
if you need some momentum,
that is something that can help you. Starting with these important dates, whether that's a Monday, whether that's moving, whether that's starting a new school or whatever, we as humans think of our lives more in chapters or phases than we do of a solid time continuum. So taking advantage of those fresh starts can really help that. Mainly because we think of it as a clean slate. We forget our past failures and we get hopeful for the future. So that's the first kind of mind trick. You can take advantage of fresh starts. Second obstacle is short-term thinking. We think that behavior change is just, again, going to be a rash that we can put cream on.
Yeah.
When really it's a longer-term thing. So to change our thinking about behavior change, that it's not a temporary effort. It's not this, once I go from Y to Z, the change is done, but to be prepared for it to be a longer-term thing. So we can kind of help this by thinking of change as a continuous effort that's not like done and done, but it's that creating the new lifestyle. So just change
I will
in
say
thinking
something
there.
on that is, because I've been back at the gym now for a little over a year, and you see everybody else who's there and just ripped and jacked and everything, and you're like, dang, I'm never going to get there. But then you're like, wait, I've only been doing it for a little over a year. These people have been doing it for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years or more.
20.
20, exactly. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, well, I'm fresh. They've been doing it for a long time.
I just started roller skating. That was my
Oh.
that
I've
was
seen
my
that. How'd it
2023.
go?
I'm
Nice.
taking that up. It's so frustrating. I mean, I can skate fine. You know, I can get forward, but I want to do like the TikTok tricks,
Are
like
you
the
going to do
little.
like the dancing
I
roller
want
skating?
to. That's
You
the
need-
goal, but
you
it
need
is
some
so
elbow
hard. I got
pads and
some. I got
hubcap.
elbow,
You need some
knee,
baby boomers
wrist.
to show you how to do it.
I know. I made a whole playlist. I got a lot of ABBA on
Guys,
there.
her skates are super cute.
They
though.
are cute.
They are.
I'm terrible at it. But so I am frustrated. And historically, I give up when I'm not instantly good at something, which is everything,
Natural.
because why would I just be good at something? I just, for some reason, think I will be. But I'm gonna try to stick with this. I'm gonna switch to long-term thinking,
All
because
right.
time will pass anyway. You know, I might as
you
well.
might as well skate.
Yeah. Our next challenge is impulsivity. We as humans just go for instant gratification.
Yeah.
We want it. We want to go to what feels good.
And that's natural, guys.
Yeah. Oh,
How
yeah.
would we fight that? Like, how do you?
So, interestingly, Katie calls this temptation bundling. So, for example, if you love to listen to fiction audiobooks, like that's your favorite thing, but you just do that on the couch or, you know, whatever, but you want to start doing more cardio, you want to get into the gym more, you can bundle those together and say, I'm only going to listen to my audiobook when I'm in the gym. And she actually did a study with participants where they had iPods with preloaded books on there, but they kept them locked in the gym so they could only listen to them when they were in the gym working out. And those people actually did work out significantly more, even so more
Nice.
than like those that were given them to take around with them and
Wow.
and whatever. So temptation bundling is one, and then and then she used the quote from Mary Poppins, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down.
Okay.
So, doing something a little good with your thing that you're not crazy about. And then the other way is gamification. So I think Apple does a great job of this with your rings, leaderboards, a competition,
That's
something
all
that you can
over
see.
fitness
Yes.
everywhere. It's one of their.
So you might want to get an activity tracker or something like that, so you can see like little progress. You get those little dopamine hits.
Yeah.
You get that instant gratification while you're working toward that long-term goal. Another obstacle is procrastination. That still goes along with that impulsivity because we don't want to do the things that we know that we need to do because we are tempted by the things that we want to do.
Yeah.
And we put those things off. So something that we can do to overcome this is create commitment devices. So an example in the book was people that put their money in a locked savings account saved more than those that had a normal savings account. Because you put that money in there, you're kind of forcing yourself to keep it in there. So same thing here. You can do things like that, make yourself commitment devices. It could be like telling your friend, if I don't go to the gym 3 times this week, I got to pay you $100. That's extreme, but they also
like
use
that.
cash commitment devices.
I'll be your friend.
Or if I don't,
let me be that friend.
yeah, they even said, or like, set a goal and then if you don't reach it, you have to donate to a charity that you don't like. So like if you're like
Nice.
anti-gun control, you'd donate to the gun charity or something. So
man.
It'd be pretty
to
powerful.
make it hard. Yeah. So there's hard penalties and there's soft penalties. Obviously, the harder the penalty, the more commitment it is. So that's another one there. Then we also just have forgetfulness.
Yeah.
That's an obstacle. So we have existing habits in our life. Obviously, we're used to doing things a certain way. So, like, for example, if you have a goal of taking your vitamins every day, but that's not something that you normally do, you might forget. Like, that's easily forgetful, Another example that they had were people going to vote. And they even took a survey and said, yes, I'm going to vote. Like, this is important to me to do. And then they just forget on election day.
Yeah.
So a couple of things that you can do to not forget is to make cues. So tie this together. So when I'm making my coffee in the morning, I will take my vitamins. And then so you start to pair those things. So as
Because
you
you ain't forgetting the coffee.
Yeah.
You're not forgetting the coffee.
Yeah, that's part. So something that's part of your routine, you pair it with something that you want to do. Or maybe it's as your coffee's brewing, you do 10 squats every morning. Or
Put
when
your vitamins by your coffee maker.
Yep, exactly. So like, when I brush my teeth, I will floss and you pair those things together. Another thing too is like reminders on your phone, like alarms. But what's really important here is that they are timely. So if you need to take your pills at night and you set an alarm for midday that says, take your pills tonight, you're like, oh, yeah, I need to take my pills tonight. Well, then it's nighttime and you forget.
Right.
So it's going to be more beneficial to make the reminder at the time that you want to do that activity. So cues and alarms. And then we've got, obviously, laziness.
Yeah,
So
that's a thing.
Humans, just have the preference to follow the path of least resistance. That's just us.
If you think about, like, if you go deep into neuroscience, right, the job of the brain is to keep you alive and to keep you safe and to use the least energy possible. And so we're constantly fighting against our own mindset to put your brain in positions that it doesn't want to be in, but that's how you learn to adapt. So it's like, it's this function of like, you want to be lazy. Like you don't want to push outside.
And you don't want to be uncomfortable.
You don't want to be uncomfortable. Like we are meant in the brain to just live and like keep you safe. But also like we have heart's desires. That's why the human is so complex, right? But it's like your mindset doesn't want to be uncomfortable. But the only way to grow is for you to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. So the antidote to this is, too much rigidity is the enemy of a good habit. So that just goes back to break it down, make it so freaking easy that you can't. So if you want to do 10 push-ups, that sounds overwhelming, especially if you can't even do one push-up. But you could say one push-up, but you could even say one wall push-up. Yeah. And start getting into that. Just make it so easy that your laziness I mean, you're ridiculously lazy if you're not even going to do that. So
Yeah.
mentally, which I get into the problem of it's only one push-up. Why would I even waste
Why
my
would I
time
do
doing
it?
that?
That's what I would say.
So
The
it's-
value isn't
right.
great enough for the
Exactly.
action.
So at some point, you are just going to have to be like, I
Yeah.
understand that it's just one, but I'm just going to do it.
I must do this.
Yes. So think I'm going to do it because it's just one versus I'm not going to do it because it's just one.
Yeah.
It's a little shift.
Well, it's also like the pessimist attitude versus the optimist attitude. Like what they talk a lot about that. We won't even go into that, but like there are some choices that you make based on if you have a pessimistic view, a realist view, or an optimist view.
Yeah.
And like the optimist and realist are kind of the same, but if you
Yeah.
have a pessimistic view on a lot of things, your decision-making capabilities is going to be drastically
Yeah.
different.
Well, the thing about breaking it down like that too is if you're just doing one and you're combating that laziness and you go to do that one push-up, you're like, I'm here. I might as well do a few more. I got up off the
Right.
couch.
Yeah.
I did one. It doesn't even seem worth it. I'm going to do a few more. So maybe you do 10, maybe you do 20, and reward yourself for that. But also reward yourself if there's a day where you literally just do one.
Yeah.
But I'm
You
telling
did
you
it.
though, like
Yeah,
once
you
you get
showed
up
up.
and you're there, you probably will do more.
Yeah.
But if you have the goal of 20, that might seem overwhelming. So that's why you start small. Really quick, there's just 3 more quick ones. So confidence. Do you have confidence in yourself? Something that can help with this is,
Deep question.
it is a deep question.
Yeah.
Teaching others and finding others that are on their journey. So it's interesting, even if you're a beginner at something and you start to learn things, like, so for roller skating, for example, like I watched a few videos and I was out roller skating with one of my friends who's also getting started with me, and I was showing her some things that I was learning, and I was getting more confident in myself as I was showing her, even though I don't know what the heck I'm
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
I watched a video, but like it's a fun, interesting growth thing that did
Nice.
boost my confidence. Conformity. So humans are imitation machines. So you can use social dynamics to your advantage. They can also kind of harm you, again, if you have those negative friends that want to keep you down and don't want to see your growth. But you can watch peers that have managed to achieve this goal. You can copy their methods. You can surround yourself with like-minded people that are going where you want to go and just take advantage of that. But yeah, it's conformity. If you find yourself in a stale circle, that can hold you back. So to break from that, change your environment up. And let's see, that was actually all of them. I thought there was 3 more. There's only 2 more, but those are the main ones.
So if you get off track, let's say we're going down a good path, we're losing momentum. We'll end with this today. What are some of the things that you would say to individuals, like in ways to get back on track or to keep that momentum going once they're in a behavior change?
I would say, like, maybe identify which obstacle. It might be one of these. It might be others that is getting in your way. Identify that obstacle and then use one of those tactics to overcome it. Also, depending on your goal, you could get a coach. You could find a buddy. You could find a mentor. You could find a therapist. Reach out for some help. But then also, like, kind of identify those trouble areas and then how exactly you can work through those.
I'd say if you were on track and you fell off, that means you already know how to get started again. So
and you
just
might
reflect.
need to use a
Just
fresh
reflect.
start.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Start again
exactly.
on Monday.
Just reflect, use that fresh start, and get right back on.
I think it's like a lot of like reflecting is overwhelming, or people legitimately think like talking about what they're feeling makes them weak.
Yeah.
I'm talking to all you guys out there, like talk about that stuff. Is like sometimes legitimate, like people think therapy is like, therapy. If you don't want to do that, like talk to someone where like you can actually get those feelings out on the table.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like sad feelings. It can just be like, I don't want to go to the gym. I hate it and I don't know how to get there. Like just putting it out there and
Yeah.
releasing
And someone
it.
could give you a fresh perspective and some
Yes.
feedback.
Right.
Like, I keep hearing you say this. Why this?
I
So,
would-
yeah.
I would say like
Get that feedback.
reflect and then like talk about it. Talk
Yeah.
about that step so you can get some help and some feedback. All right, guys, that wraps us up for behavior change. We're going back into nutrition around fueling performance for our next couple episodes. So come join us to learn how to eat before and after your workout. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.